Shalom Aleichem, and let us learn the beautiful Sicha Vayakhel Aleph, which ultimately is a Sicha about a Nasi. It comes to explain what Rashi brings. Amad Abnasan Mado Hanasim Lisnade Bechanukas Hamizbeach Tchilo. Why did the Nasim decide to come first by Chanukas Hamizbeach? Melechas Hamishkan Lo Yisnade Tchilo, but when it came to Melechas Hamishkan, they didn't come first. What the Nasim told them themselves originally was, Yisnad v'tzir v'mashn yisnadvin, let them give whatever they want to give. Mashem mechasim, whatever they lack, on the mashlimim will fill up. Kivin shifli b'dakaro, but when the Yidden finished everything, like it says, they did everything. Amlacha yisadayim. They said, what can we do? They brought the avnei shayam, and therefore they came to the Chanukas Hamizbeach. They showed up at the beginning. Ulefishnis atzlu mitchilam, because they were lazy at the first time. Nechser ois mishmam, a letter was missing. V'nasiyim minus a yud. So Rebbe goes and explores. Why are we talking about Chanukas Hamizbeach now? That's only in Parshas Nasai. We're not even discussing here. And then the Rebbe really boils down to what the role of a Nasi is. The Rebbe says like this: the first and foremost, the responsibility of a Nasi is that the tzibur should give. Like we find that Moshe, when he would come from Hashem, would not take care of himself. Not only wouldn't he take care of his gashmis, he wouldn't take care of his ruchnius between him and Hashem, but rather from the mountain directly to the nation. And the Rebbe says, not in the Likkutei Sichos, but originally when the Rebbe said the Sicha, he says, a Nasi is in a greater level than every Yid, even before they're appointed to a Nasi. And because they are so great, therefore they were appointed to Nasi. And says the Rebbe more so, even if before that they were in such a Baal Milo, they weren't on such a great level, the mere fact that the Yidden chose them to be a Nasi makes them higher than everybody. Just like we find by Truma, that one thing can totally transform it. When you add one chita, can totally transform it. Even though this chita is like all the other chitim in the bucket, but we're told that when one yid chooses it, and through the koyach HaTorah and the koyach of Hashem, he can transform the whole kri, the whole bucket is now pater from truma by just choosing one. In other words, you elevate everything. So too, by the mere fact that you didn't choose a Nasi, that itself promotes him to the highest level. And a Nasi, Mashem Echashim, whatever the Yidden lack, then Anu Mashlim Maisa, we have to fix it. We have to fill it. But the Yidden came and gave everything, even money for the Avnei Shayam. So the Nasim said, what should we do? They already did everything they could as Nasim, but now they start thinking about what we could bring. And they bring the Avnei Shayam, even though it was not necessary because there was the money for it, but nevertheless they gave. Even so, technically, what they gave is not at the same level as Am Yisrael. Even though L'chur B'nai Yisrael came and did it with encouragement of Nasim, that's why Rashi quotes Rav Nassan, because Rav Nassan has the idea of Shibudar to Rav Nassan, which means that the intermediary has no role to play, doesn't get any significance in it. So from the fact that they didn't manage to get to add anything, they realized that there was a lacking in their anhaga. By the mere fact that they didn't give something by the beginning, it wasn't only because they were busy with Am Yisrael, but rather because there was laziness. And the Rebbe then, when the Rebbe said the Sicha, he quoted the following story. We know that Nachum of Chernobyl was a very, very poor person and was always farfetched when it came to Parnas, and he had big debt. One time, when he was receiving Chassidim, one of the Chassidim gave 300 ruble in documents. It's 100 silver ruble. He thought to himself, why did Hashem do that he should have such a schum? Especially that all the money that he got from everybody else was just 100 ruble in documents, and this was 300 ruble. So he stopped receiving Chassidim and he started meditating. What's going on here? Now he thought, before this chassid, another poor chassid came and claimed that he can't support his family, can't pay for his kids' tuition, can't marry his daughter off, and he needs 300 ruble. So he decided to give this chassid. But then he started thinking, maybe I shouldn't give one person so much, because I could keep 6 families alive, including his own family, who was poor. And says the Likkutei Rebbe, this was by a tzaddik gomer, so this was a real intellectual idea to know what's coming, what's the right thing. So his maskana was, if the second svara to give out the money to different people would have come from the Yetzer Tov, it should have come immediately. Because it didn't come immediately, it's a proof that comes from the Yetzer Hara. Because the Yetzer Hara didn't want to suggest that he give it to 6 families, because he was hoping that Rabbi Nachum would take everything for himself. Only once he realized that he wants to give everything to the poor person did he decide to give the idea of 6 so that you could get 1. So the Rebbe says over here, from here you learn that you need to have the seichel to understand what's holding you back, what's the agenda. Ultimately, their agenda, you could seemingly say, they were in the Siyam, so their job was to push Am Yisrael. But is it possible there was another agenda of laziness? Because they didn't have the ultimate level of bittul. And that's why we see that they're missing the letter Yud, which is the meaning of bittul. They should, even though it was their job to push Bnei Yisrael, nevertheless they should have pushed their Nedava first. Why? Because ultimately a big important thing of the Mishkan was it has to be built now. And therefore, if you have to build now, you have to bring your stuff now. And what's the Ira? The Rebbe learns is for the Nesios of every single Yid. As the Rebbe then quotes in the Megillah, Liyos Kol Ish Sorei B'Veisei, we all have to be leaders in our own homes. That has to come from bittul. And don't think that it's enough just that you're influencing others, but you have to work within yourself. This Sicha was said on the Shabbos Parashat Vayakhel Likkutei Tafshin Chavav, and it's just a magnificent lesson on what it means, first of all, to be a Nasi of Am Yisrael, but also what it means to be a Nasi of Ir Ktana Shaloi Zeh Guf, as the Rebbe says in Ois Yud Beis on the Ramach Evarim Shasa Gidim, and to be a leader in the surroundings. As the Rebbe says in footnote 41, that they are Adam Umadini. It's a thing that the Rebbe quotes very often in the Rambam. The human being is a social being. And him and his surroundings are affected by one another. Either you're going to be the one that's making an impact, or they're going to make an impact by you. So you want to know how to make sure that there's nothing lacking in your avodas Hashem. There has to be the bittul, the incredible level of bittul. And when you do it with bittul, then you're able to accomplish anything. There's no question that even when we do shlichus, this idea, a person sit there saying, my makur of that person, I brought the guy close to Yiddishkeit. The second it's about you, I've heard Baal Tshuva one time tell me, he says, I can't stand when I hear somebody say, I made this guy from. What do you mean? I didn't have free choice? And the ultimate shliach is someone that's like, I'm just doing the Eibishter's work, I'm just doing the Rebbe's work, and I'm out of the way. I brought you to the Rebbe, and now it's the Rebbe and you, it's the Eibishter and you, I'm out of it. That yud, that bittul is so important when we affect others and when we affect ourselves. And Mitzvah Hashem, we should be able to do avodas hashlichus hapratis v'haklalis in the best way possible.